This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Welcome back, everyone. We talked about Feng Shui last time we got together. She's an expert in that. And I realized that you never often hear people talk about using Feng Shui for the best outcome, the best result, the best vibe, if you will, in outdoor living spaces. Summertime now. What should we be doing? Never even thought of it. I'm always thinking about put the desk here, inside your home or office, make more money and all of that. We're going to focus on the outdoor today with Catherine Dean. She is our go-to for Feng Shui. Welcome back. How are you doing today?
Good. It's good to see you again, and thanks for having me.
You too. Yeah, looking forward to digging into this. I want to recap real quick before we do that. Last time we got together, we were talking about a home office I have, and I just use a hypothetical example, how I just never feel productive. I have good intention. I sit down and I'm like, all right, let's get all that done. And then I wind up, going down a social media rabbit hole, or it's just like everything's laborious in my home office. And you identified some things that make perfect sense that, I moved a while ago, but never really officially made it the office. It was going to be a room for another purpose, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to be making changes. I'll report back on that.
Good.
But today, let's go outside.
Let's go outside.
Do the principles for Feng Shui indoors pretty much hold true for the outside?
Yes, it does. And it's it's a little harder to visualize. But when you go back to the origins of Feng Shui, that is kind of where it all originated, where the ancient masters noticed how the landscape around them would affect the life they would live in the homes that they had, whatever they were, if they were huts or caves or, simple structures. Mountains, water, trees, they all create either protection or some sort of detriment, and they learned how to work with it to the best of to everyone's advantage. So fast forward to modern times, there's two ways of looking at your outdoors. One is you can actually literally feng shui it out with placing the Bagua map on a visualization of your backyard or your front yard and how your house sits on the property. And you can also just look at it from an aesthetic point of view. And very often the aesthetics lines up with the feng shui. And so very simply, the very first thing I would look at for anyone in their property is, how does your landscape look as you are approaching your front door? The front door is very, very important in feng shui. And so you ask yourself, do I feel good when I'm approaching my front door? Or do I have to climb over shrubs or, bikes, or, is the garbage out? You want how it looks on the outside affects your mood. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, what are the landscape, what is the word I am looking for? Kind of like the signature landscapes. Do you have a sloping backyard? Do you have flat lawn?
Characteristics.
The characteristics, thank you, yeah. Do you have trees all around? Is it blocking your sunlight? Do you have water that runs through your property? Is it if you do, is it a babbling brook, or is it a swamp? So think all those things have an effect. And if that's the case, then if it's something detrimental, you can do things to correct it. And I could go on and on. So where would you like to go?
I want to go back to the Bagua map that you mentioned. And, exactly what is that?
So the Bagua is a energetic map that sits over a blueprint of a home or an office, or you can place it over the entire lot of your home. And when I say place it, I don't mean literally. I mean, figuratively, where you can identify. Oh, well, first of all, the Bagua, I should probably explain what the Bagua is. Like I said, the energetic map, but it is made up of 9 different areas of life that we cover in Feng Shui. Um, Children, uh, helpful people, fame, money, wealth, career, those kinds of health, those kinds of things are all covered on the Bagua map. And so when you place it on your home, I can, or any feng shui consultant can identify where certain areas of their home lies on the Bagua. In other words, you have if you have a wealth area and you find that your bathroom is there, then you would want to correct that because bathrooms drain energy. And so you wouldn't want your wealth drained. There's all these connections. When you do it outside, it's the same thing. You would just place it, at the front of the driveway all the way to the backyard and see where everything lies. You would divide it up into 9 sections and see where, what is sitting in the area where my partnership area is. Do you have, I don't know, a beautiful landscape where everything is blooming and everything is thriving? That's probably happening in your relationship as well. So there's connections like that. Or do you go over to your wealth area and you see a dead tree? It's like, okay, there's dead energy there. How is that relating to your wealth, your income? Is there a connection there? Like, are things a little stagnant there are you stuck? Can you only make so much money? Are you having trouble saving money? Does the money come in and then go out just as fast? You could look at the landscape in that way. That's one way of
Wow.
looking at it. And then another way is just decorating it with feng shui principles in mind.
There's a lot going on here. Now, let's say you added, and I sold a house a couple of years ago, but I completely renovated the backyard.
Okay.
And there was a bunch of trees and they were all kind of scrubby and just I don't like killing trees, but
Yeah.
they were just they were going to fall down anyway and just
Yeah.
scrub brush. So I cleared everything out, renovated everything, to totally change everything. Among the things, added a pool. So I
Hmm.
guess that's the water element.
Yep.
I added a fire pit. So I guess
Hmm.
fire is important. I don't know.
Yep.
Even added a sandy area with a faux palm tree that looks, you couldn't even tell, look real.
Hmm.
Um, but everything was I was very picky about it, very meticulous.
Yeah.
Let's focus on fire pit. People love them in the summertime. What's the big deal with fire?
Well, fire is it's a very strong element. It represents passion, transformation. It's very intense. I'm always intrigued and fascinated by the power of fire because I live in the Northeast in the Rochester, New York area. We have winters, they get cold and blustery,
Yep.
and we have a fireplace. And boy, when that fireplace is going, it's like, oh, we're so cozy, it feels so good. But then one can appreciate the wildfires, and how the destruction of an uncontained fire can be. So you always, when it comes to fire, you always want to keep it balanced and under control because too much of the fire element can make a person crabby, insomnia, agitated, and it can just be a negative. So when you have a fire pit out in the outside, the intention there is for warmth and comfort and camaraderie. And so if it fits in your space and it brings joy in your world and it's fulfilling the purpose that you had intended, then it would be a nice addition to a backyard,
Hmm. Um, Not all of us can add a pool to our backyard,
right?
so you can add some water features.
Hmm.
Um,
You could
I
do a
remember,
little. Oh, no, please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean
no,
to
same,
cut you
same.
off.
Um, I remember the house before that. I had a hot tub, but
Hmm.
I love call it like three separate ceramic pots, and water would trickle from one to the other. It had a little pump going on there, and you'd hear the sounds of water and things like that. What does water truly represent in feng shui?
Water represents wealth in feng shui.
Really?
Yes. And so when people put fountains in their home, there's really an ideal way to put a fountain in your home or in your landscape. And that's just to make sure that the water trickles towards the door. But that counts more in the when it's in the front of the front yard where the front door is. Everything that happens in the backyard has less of an effect than it does in the front yard. So, moving water in the backyard, I would think in terms more of just the relaxation of it. But the
Mm,
thing is, you don't want it to be stagnant. You do want it to be moving. So that's good. And when you have the fire and the water, they kind of cancel each other out. But when you bring in the other elements, everything is balanced. So you had the sand, which would be like earth, and then you would need some wood, which you could do with your patio furniture,
mm,
and let's see, wood, and then metal. You would need some metal. You could do that with actual metal, like lawn furniture, or you could do that with color, because the color white represents metal. You could bring in elements through color, through shapes. There's a lot of ways you can do that. So you might just have an actual fire pit and you might have an actual pool, and those are the two actual elements, but you could represent the other elements with other things. If you had trees in your backyard, there's your wood right there.
mm. Okay. I get when it comes to feng shui, I've always been fixated about direction.
Hmm.
Having inside a desk, facing a certain direction,
Direction. Yep.
south, whatever it might be.
Hmm.
Um, if we look at the backyard, are there some basic principles? Like if I'm, let's say, hey, we're trying to decide what we should do in our backyard and the direction things should face for the best feng shui outcome. Are there
Hmm.
some things that stand out for you there?
I have to say that in the course of the different trainings I've had, I have not seen a focus on direction in the
Hmm.
backyard. It's more about balance. It's making sure that the landscape is alive and thriving. So what you said about the trees, and I'm with you right there. I don't like to cut down trees either, but you also don't want dead energy surrounding you. So if a tree is struggling and it cannot come back to life, you know, ideally, if a tree is struggling, you would want to see if it can be revived. And if it can't, then that dead energy is negative to your living situation. And
Hmm.
so you would have to part with the tree. That is, it's weighing it out. What's the better thing to do? It's much better to not have dead energy surrounding you than it is to have something half li living in your midst.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And just to be clear, when I got rid of those trees, what did I do? I planted other trees. I
Nice.
planted every blade of grass myself.
No,
Like it was, it wasn't like there was still life going on there. Just the trees weren't part of it. Um, Outside, any other things that stand out for you that we should be aware of?
well, always, clutter, overgrown. Overgrown landscape is very off-putting, not only for people who drive by, which we're not as concerned about that as how you feel when you're living in your home. That's your primary focus. And the outside can definitely have a negative effect if things are overgrown and neglected and messy. And it doesn't have to be, a beautiful English garden. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It just needs to show that it is cared for. If you've got branches that fall down, you discard them. If you have, like you like you mentioned about your trees, you not only got rid of the ones that were struggling, but you replaced them as well. You strike me as somebody who has had a lot of either if this comes to you naturally or you've had quite a bit of exposure without even knowing because you do seem to understand a lot of the feng shui principles just, because it feels right. The fire pit, the getting rid of the struggling trees, planting new ones, planting grass, keeping things alive, vibrant, lush. Yeah, those are all good feng shui principles.
Well, didn't even know. And
I
that's the way
know.
it was. And I ride on my intuition.
Hmm.
And when I bought that house, there was a shed in the middle of the backyard.
Hmm.
And just like, all right, that doesn't make sense. And I moved it over to the right
Hmm.
as I was reconfiguring. And that was actually wasn't easy to do, moving an entire shed over to the right part of the backyard. And I looked at it and I don't know what I don't know what it was, Catherine. Just didn't feel right. This doesn't really belong here. Wound
Uh-huh.
up moving it to the left side and
Interesting.
pushing it back a little bit. And it's like, that's where it belongs. Okay. On to the next thing. Even, the hot tub. Where should that go? It just felt like, it belongs over here. I have
Hmm.
no answers for you. I don't know. It's just what felt right. It's really what it came down to.
Yeah, that was actually a good move to it. That was not its ideal position in the right in the backyard. If you go by BTB feng shui, the back right would be the partnership area, and a shed. Are you stopping me there,
No,
or you're
I'm trying to figure out, you
visualizing?
said back right. Okay. So,
Yeah,
um,
you said that that's where you would put the shed, and it didn't feel right there.
and
And
is this, just for clarity, is this facing the backyard from the house out?
from the
Okay.
house out.
So you
Yep.
said putting it in the right side of the yard means what?
Well, if you're standing like at the end of the driveway, looking at the front of your house and visualizing going all the way into the back of the house in the landscape and then to the back right, if you follow BTB feng shui, the Western feng shui, that's the partnership area. And when you have a freestanding building that's removed from the main structure, that can represent a break in a relationship. You have the structure of your home and then a freestanding building in the partnership area. And you would want to correct that. And you took one look at it and said, I don't even like the way it looks there. It's got to go over here. I just
Well,
find that interesting.
it wasn't really part of the main structure because it was a shed, right?
Yes,
Uh,
I understand that.
okay.
Yeah.
What does it represent putting it in the left side?
Well, that would be the wealth corner. And it just, you would still, I'm not, this is where I remember distinctly with the partnership area that you would want to bring that shed back into the fold of your home energetically. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, that would have been important for your partnership, for your life partnerships.
Sure, sure. And I've always and we talked about it last time. Um, the front door is pinnacle in feng shui. That's what I'm
Always.
getting from you. Now,
Yep.
we kind of looked at the front door from the inside of the house. Now let's look at the front door from the outside of the house. What
Mhm.
kind of characteristics would you suggest we look at for the best outcome?
So if you have any windows in your doors, you want the windows to be clean. If you have any, peeling paint, you would want to scrape that and get a nice paint job for your front door. If you have plants that you keep by
Hmm.
your front door, you would want to keep them out of walking. You don't want them in a position where people have to kind of scooch around them because that creates an energetic obstruction. So you would want a free flow from, your driveway through your sidewalk right up to your front door. If you have a tree or shrubs that are near your front door, I mean, that looks beautiful in a lot of settings and a lot of people have it and that's totally fine. You just want to make sure that everything's healthy around the front door and that things are trimmed so that you can easily enter and exit without obstruction. Just a free flow in and out.
So you brought back a memory to the house before, the one I was referring to, where the front door faced south and would
Hmm.
always get a lot of sun, and it was inside a storm door. So it was like an oven.
Right.
So typically, like every 2 years, I would totally remove the finish on the door and totally put a new finish on. Not even paint, like it was a gel stain to
Mm-hmm.
simulate wood and everything. So when you said, if the door is kind of nasty looking, I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't having it. Just I'm very
Yeah.
uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
And it faced south. What does facing south mean with the front door?
It, excuse me. Sorry about that. The South is your fame and reputation area. And we do know that the South gets a lot of heat like that, but it's still about fame and reputation. In BTB feng shui, the directions are not as important as what the front door represents, and the front door always sits in the usually sits in the career area. So it would either be your career, or if you are the mindset that you want to follow all the directions, it would be about your fame and reputation.
Hmm. What if your front door faces east?
Now, I knew you were gonna. I have my little cheat sheet here. Well,
I
the,
don't know what
the
it is why I'm fixated on the direction of the door. It's like, I don't know. I don't know if that makes it
um,
different.
well, the East is about community or family. That's the area. And when I say family, I don't mean your children. I mean your ancestors, your siblings. From your level going backwards. Creativity and new beginnings. That's children, and that's the oh, what is that? That's the West.
Gotcha.
So, it's kind of hard to visualize. And then what do you do with that knowledge? Like what does it mean to have family in the East or fame in the South? Well, it depends. It depends on what you want to do with your life. When we say about fame and reputation, we don't necessarily mean Stephen Colbert fame or that kind of thing. It's about your reputation. It's about how people perceive you, your neighbors, your family and friends. You're in the public eye, so you would be more concerned about a bigger picture fame and reputation. But everybody's concerned about that. So if you had a concern about that and it's at your front door, well, you want to make sure that your front door is how you want to present yourself to the world. You think figuratively, and because there's so much symbolism in feng shui.
What's coming up for me is condition and energy flow. Like everything you've said, a lot of what you said here, as we focus on the outdoor living spaces, is it's got to be clean. It's got
Hmm.
to have not a clutter
Hmm.
outside. It's got to be things that are living, not
Hmm.
things that are dying off.
Right.
Um, can somebody work with you remotely and let's say, all right, Catherine, here's my backyard and shoot a
Hmm.
video. This is what I got over here. And can you look at that and then make adjustments and
Yeah.
suggestions?
Yes, I can do that. And the best rule of thumb when you are unsure of where to go or what to do, it's always about balancing out all of the elements. Having that wood there, having the fire, having the earth, having metal, having water. It's the five elements. And some people have a natural affinity to it. And you're a great example of good feng shui feels good. When you don't like something, I'm sure the feng shui is off, but a lot of people don't think in terms of feng shui. And a lot of things that happen within feng shui are very simple to fix. People don't understand that it does not have to be complicated at all. There's a lot of small adjustments, tweaks, enhancements. People call them cures. A lot of people, a lot of things are referred to as cures in feng shui. I like to say adjustments or enhancements or neutralizing because there's a lot of negative energy out there too that needs to be neutralized.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mm.
So yes, but I do work remotely and I work, obviously in person in the Rochester, New York area. But yeah, somebody could send me that and we could work together on that.
I like, I'm in between houses waiting for the right situation. The market here you're upstate New York, I'm downstate New York. Just kind of
Oh,
crazy,
oh
highest
yeah.
ever where I am. So I'm just waiting, but I'm also thinking, you know what? If I'm going to renovate, I want the best outcome. So I would call upon you. This is what I got over here. I'm thinking
Yeah.
about putting this in, and what do you think about this and this
Yep.
direction? Fascinating. You've got me off the feng shui fixation of direction because I've always been programmed that things got to be in a certain direction. Now I'm more in the balance,
Yeah.
more of the chi territory, if you will.
Yeah. And I really think when people are not going to employ a feng shui consultation, the best thing to go by is how does it feel? Does it feel balanced? Are all the elements represented? I have so much information between my newsletters and some blogs that I've written on my website. There's a lot of information out there. But you did say something important, and I'd like to get this in before we're done today.
Sure.
And that is you're between houses. And I have two of my kids rent, and there's my third one, the parents own the house. And so it's a different kind of arrangement. But what I would like people to understand is that wherever you are, that is your home for as long as you live there. And it's so important to embrace that, no matter if you're renting, waiting for the right one, in a temporary place because you're building, whatever the situation is, it is your home for as long as you live there, and you should treat it as such. Now, that doesn't mean you have to invest thousands of dollars in plants and things for the outdoors, but simple maintenance and just loving your home. Loving your home and treating it with respect and nurturing it. And then you get that back and that supportive energy that comes from, it's an interactive thing because energy, it just ebbs and flows and you want it to flow smoothly. And when you're nurturing something, you get that back.
Thank you for saying that. And I bought 2 plants, bigger ones, back in, I want to say like mid-April, early May.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on a quest to nurture them. It's ridiculous, but I've first thing I do is make sure they're watered.
Yep.
Like I'm very particular about it. To me, it's a living thing. I have responsibility. It's giving me joy when I come home and see, blossoming plants. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So I make sure it's watered.
You really just can't underestimate those. I mean, that is nothing to apologize for. That's the way we should be with our plants, with our pets, with our homes, with, our possessions.
So much great information here today. And really opened my eyes in a different direction, Catherine. How do we find you? If somebody wants to book a consult, learn some more, how do they do that?
So my website, CatherineDeanFengShui.com, and Catherine is CATHERINE, because there's many ways to spell Catherine.
Yep.
So, CatherineDeanFengShui.com.
And Dean is spelled DEAN?
Yeah.
Wasn't
Yes.
Paula Dean the chef? Wasn't it DE?
She's DEEN, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And you know what? My husband's name is Paul, and people have teased us over the years about that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for today. Appreciate it. And looking forward next time we get together.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.